Our beloved 8% Hard AF Seltzer is now live in Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Texas, Ohio, Montana, Idaho, Oregon, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Illinois. Go to hardafseltzer.com today, click on the store locator, and enter your city or zip to find the closest location nearest you.
We are cold for energy. Send it. Incoming. Put the money in the bag, man.
As I said, your paycheck is your thank you.
What's going on back there? This is awesome! Welcome to Earth! No. Who's flying the plane? Get cockpit. Go. God.
Black Rifle Energy, dropping near you.
Welcome to Drinkin Bros, presented by OmahaSteaks.com. Yeah, welcome to Drinkin Bros, kids. Back from St. Louis. Had an absolute blast at Summer Smash with firstform.com/Drinkin Bros. Those guys are on it. Starting off with a banger this week. Top of the week here, kids. We got Representative Brian Harrison from Texas with us. This is the guy over the last 3 or 4 weeks, D'Anthony, that we've been talking about, where with the shape that Texas politics is in, it feels like a gigantic uniparty. This guy's been going live from the floor, what seems like every single day, telling you what's in these bills, what is going on with these bills, who is voting or not voting on these bills, and also who is paying for a mariachi band to play during some of these sessions. Brian, thank you for joining us today.
It's great to be with you, and I'm very happy to be with you after the last 5 months in Austin. I'm thrilled to be back home in Texas, and it's a joy to be with you.
I'm sure. I understand it. Look, this is personal to me. I lived in California for 15 years. I saw what happened when state politics can drive a state into the ground. I don't feel like Texas is that far behind. When we moved here 5 years ago, we were promised freedom and bang bang and all the fun stuff here. What I've noticed is extremely high property taxes. They're getting ready to ban weed. You've got the abortion issue, which I think just the governor decides and nobody gets to vote on that in the states. And then you have a bunch of Republicans who are voting for Democratic policies. How do your colleagues feel about you fighting the good fight, or at least trying to, by going live on Twitter every day and showing us what's going on?
I don't think there is anything more hated in Austin than my Twitter feed. There is nothing I have been yelled at, screamed at, cussed at more on the floor of the Texas House than what I post on Twitter. I guess it's X now. I mean, they cannot, the uniparty, not just the weak-kneed, soft rhino squishes down there, but also like the mainstream media, the outlets. I mean, Texas Monthly today called me the cockroach of the session. I mean, like, they can't stand the fact that I bypass all of them because I don't work for I got 200,000 bosses here in my district and the liberty and freedom of 30 million Texans. That's what I care about. And they can't stand that I bypass them and the censors and the filters and just start posting up live from the floor of the House. And I always joke that, transparency is like kryptonite in the swamp. And so they cannot stand that I post that stuff. And to your point, I want to go and hit this and highlight what you said, because most people don't know this, especially if you're outside of Texas watching this. People hear Texas, and like, I'm a multi-generation Texan. I'm a proud Texan. I love this state. We have a reputation for leading in freedom and liberty and small government and Republican conservative values. But here's the facts. That is just not true anymore. We have been just coasting on that small government reputation for many years now. I'm sick and tired of it. I'm fed up with it. I'm calling it out. And here's the thing. President Trump, the voters of Texas, they did their job. They went to the polls. They reelected President Trump in a 14-point landslide. Kamala Harris and Joe Biden were routed here in the great state of Texas. But what did a lot of these down ballot, state level officials do when they got in office? The same Republicans that campaign saying, vote for me, I'll stand up to the left. Vote for me, I will push back on the radical Democrats that want to bankrupt our state. These same rhinos, once they got elected, they go down underneath the pink dome of the Capitol, and then they vote to put the very same Democrats in power. Kamala's team is basically in charge in the Austin swamp, and it's an outrage. I think it's one of the biggest political scandals in all of America.
Yeah, it's interesting that they referred to you as some kind of cockroach or something when they're the ones who scatter anytime you turn the fucking lights on. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's like the iron law of woke projection. Anytime these dummies are up to something, they just start accusing everybody else of doing it. And people at some point recently figured out that a lot of folks are just paying attention to the letter at the end of somebody's name and not the substance behind their policy positions. You know what I mean? So what happened in Texas, and it's happening in Florida right now too, is that a bunch of left-leaning centrists, right, ran as Republicans.
Yes.
Because people see R, they outspend and win the primary. They see R on the final ballot and it's like, oh, that's the Republican. That's who I'm going to vote for, right? And that's like, this is one regard, I think, where Texas voters did not do their due diligence. For Trump, certainly, right? But we've got to, and look, this is part of the political process. You should always pay more attention to your side than the other side. We have this tendency to bitch about the other side, but if our engines aren't working correctly, then we can't get anywhere.
Right.
No, and I call this, and it makes them crazy. Like, people always want to blame the Democrats for this or that or the other thing in Austin. I'm like, stop it. Talking to Republicans, like, stop blaming the Democrats, because the Austin Uniparty loves it when the Democrats get blamed. But guess what, guys? Here's a little secret. There ain't enough Democrat elected officials in Austin to pass a birthday resolution unless Republicans help them. So every bad thing that happens, the only people who are responsible are people with Republican by their names. And every good thing that doesn't happen, that's because Republicans killed that too. And perhaps the biggest betrayal of the whole session, like if we had to do one thing, like if voters of Texas said, all right, guys, you're going to be down there for 5 months. We want you to do one thing and only one thing. It'd be to get this absurd, crushing burden of property taxes off our throat. I mean, these property taxes in Texas, people think we're a small government, low tax state. That's a myth. Yep. We've got like the fourth or fifth highest property, maybe the third property tax burden in all of America, like the fourth highest local debt burden in all of America. And we did absolutely nothing meaningful on property taxes. And I think you mentioned a second ago about the slush funds down there.
Yeah, we got this. How many billions of dollars are in that slush fund that is currently our taxpayer money?
You ready for your mind to be blown?
Yes.
People hear us talk about the surplus all the time. And so we started the session, like, it's just like it should have been a layup, okay, to reduce property taxes. We started session with a $24 billion surplus. And people in Austin are like, oh, we have the surplus because we're so fiscally responsible. Hooey. We have the surplus because we have overtaxed Texans. We have stolen $24 million more out of your pockets than we need. And so for me, the baseline, like the starting point for how much property tax relief should have been $24 billion. But hang on, it gets worse. And by the way, the only new property tax relief we voted for was about $3 or $4 billion. Keep that in mind. So for perspective, we started session with a $24 billion surplus, but hang on, it gets better. And by better, I mean a lot worse. On top of the $24 billion surplus, we also have something else called the rainy day fund. People think those two are the same. No, they are different. They're separate piles of cash. So we got a $24 billion surplus. And how much is in the rainy day fund? Almost 30. Wow. $30 billion. And then you take in just the unexpended balances in all of our state agency accounts. That could be another $10 or $20 billion. So we're sitting on a pile of your money. If you're a Texan and you're going to work, you're at work, you got off work, whatever, you pay your taxes and you think the government's there looking out for you and protecting your liberty. Hell no. The government is just stealing. I mean, the mob never had a racket this sophisticated, okay? We've got a pile, almost $60 billion, or at least we did when we started session 5 months ago. But we didn't give it back. No, we burned it. We burned through the surplus, passing just about every left-wing initiative and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris pet project you can imagine. Texas voters were massively betrayed, and they deserve way better. We could get rid of property taxes. We could cut property taxes in half immediately. I found $90 billion that I identified on the budget debate. $90 billion. We could cut nobody without breaking a sweat. No one would know. Cut property taxes in half today. Put our state on a path to full elimination. We could do that, but nobody in Austin has the courage to do it.
Yeah, just for context, for you Texas voters out there, Texas does a biennial budget. And I think the latest one that passed was $321 billion, so that's $160 billion a year, right? The idea that we've got 50+ billion sitting around, that's 30. That's a third. We had a surplus of a third of our annual budget.
Yeah, and now of course the problem with the percentages is the government is not staying the same size. So we're doing, this is the budget we just passed. This is the most liberal, bloated, progressive budget in the history of Texas. It's a California-style budget. Okay, we have grown government just in the last 2 budget cycles, a staggering 42%. Look, I worked for President Trump for years in D.C. D.C. Democrats don't grow government 42% in just 2 budget cycles. And you mentioned California, and I'm glad you did. People are shocked when they learn some of the truth. Like, it's not just that we're on the path to becoming California. In some respects, we've already overtaken California. This is going to shock you. Gavin Newsom's California has fewer occupational license requirements than the state of Texas. So in some areas of deregulation policy, California is actually to the right of Texas. And this is why it makes me so crazy that people believe we have this reputation, because people need to have their eyes open. And I'm so grateful for you guys exposing this. If Texans knew the corrupt big government nanny state betrayal that's going on in Austin, and we could talk about SB 3 and the vape ban and the stupid hemp ban. I think I'm one of only 2 Republicans that voted against both those things.
Yeah, we'll get to that as well.
Like going towards nanny state, big government liberalism.
Yeah, because if you look at it, and again, I've said this for years on the show, it feels like this state is going to turn into California at some point. You just don't know when. It's all policies and it's all politics, obviously. But how do we change it? Because what I said about you on this show a few weeks ago is there isn't enough yous in Congress. Also, with this show being as big as it is, and every single congressman, senator, cabinet member, and their mother coming on here, everybody talks a great game. Once they get in there, though, that game is over. And we're seeing that happen in our federal government as well as our local government.
Yeah, nobody's more conservative than a Republican who's out of power.
Yes.
Well, it's like I joke about this too so we're going to have primary season come up next March. And I always joke that my favorite thing about primaries is that for about 3 months, every week, Rhino establishment Republican morphs into Ron Paul for 2 months, and then they go to D.C. and they govern pick the most liberal Democrat among them. And here's the thing: it's hard for voters to tell the truth. But I'll tell you why this happens. And I say this: I've been privileged to serve in and out of government for many years at high levels. I'll tell you what happens. When you get elected to office, you may go there with the right reasons and the right intent. You may even have the right beliefs. But instead of being around like you've been your whole life, your friends, your neighbors, the people you go to restaurants with, or the farmers or the ranchers, whatever that you knew growing up, your new peer group, once you get elected, well, who are they? Well, they're other politicians. And they're the lobbyists, okay? And they're the rich liberal special interests. And it's just human nature. You want to be liked by the people you're around. But almost nobody that goes into Austin or D.C., very few people can choose to remember that, hey, even though I'm surrounded by these people, my bosses are all back home. And here's the choice every elected official has to make. And you can't delay the choice. You only got 2 options, and you've got to pick one. You can either be popular in the swamp, or you can fight for the freedom and the liberty of the next generation of Texans. And unfortunately, we've got a state right now, a state that I love. We just do not have bold, fearless, conservative leadership just about anywhere you look. And I'm doing everything I can to change that.
I agree, but you're only one man. And unfortunately, we need all of these people to go in and vote. This is our same problem with federal. I agree with everything Trump is doing or trying to accomplish, except for the big, beautiful bill, which, let's face it, it's big, but it's not that beautiful. And we're seeing, the results of that with the back and forth in Musk and everything else that's going on behind the scenes right now. But how do we change any of this? Because in my opinion, you're at 538 elected officials that are up there?
Yep.
That is such a huge number to change, not only state by state, but then to get them to go to D.C., exactly like you said, sit down and have dinner, lunch every day, not care if they're liked, not caring if they're popular, and actually doing what's right for the American people. How do we change this?
I think you got to start with the stuff that that you can't change. You can't change that power is attractive to sociopaths and psychopaths, right?
Yeah.
That'll never change. They will always gravitate towards that stuff. You can't change that institutional power does indeed have the power, right? So that's why we created a system called federalism that limits the power and sends it back to the states. But the most important thing you can do, and Brian mentioned it at the outset, is sunlight is the best disinfectant. People have to know things, right? Mm-hmm. And you can see systematically how with propagandizing through the media, but also it's quite a bit deeper. I mean, I don't know if you've talked to anybody. I know your kids are a little bit younger. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've talked to anybody that have kids in middle and high school, but they're not. We don't have nationwide in public schools. Civics classes are not a thing anymore. Why do you think that is? Did we just all of a sudden somebody decide, you know what, civics not a big deal? No, they intentionally did this clearly.
So that we would. Go ahead.
No, just there's a lot of topics that you guys hit up there. I mean, real quick, first of all, on how to fix it. I'd like to blend the how do you fix it with what you said a second ago, which is this notion of federalism. I really think people, when they think about, okay, things are on the wrong track, whatever, they typically think they're living their lives to the extent they have a limited bandwidth to focus on government. They think of Washington, D.C., and they think of the White House, and they think of the federal Congress. But one of the beauties of federalism is that we're supposed to have a decentralized power structure. And in fact, Washington, D.C. is supposed to be a creation of and responsive to the states. And so one of the ways I think we start saving the country is by focusing and remembering not just that there's one swamp, but there's actually 51 swamps. Every state has a state level swamp. And at the state level, that's where, people getting engaged can really have a much greater chance of having tangible benefits and some progress. So holding your state elected officials' feet to the fire is way easier than holding your federal officials' feet to the fire. And then number two, transparency. I mean, that's why we joked. I joke that the most hated thing is my X feed and probably podcasts like yours, because we can bypass the traditional media. And I've long said that if 30 million Texans just knew the treachery of these fake Republicans in Austin, there'd be riots in the streets. So I think the number one job for people who care about preserving small government liberty principles and freedom is opening the eyes of people to the truth. Because until people understand the problem, it's going to be a lot harder to address it. And then finally, you mentioned education, two things. I mean, we're going the wrong way in education in the state of Texas. Almost nobody knows this. Nobody covered it. We removed the requirement for high school students to learn economics this session. Why the hell we did that? I mean, your guess is as good as mine, but almost all Republicans voted for this. It's complete madness. And you have to consider the backdrop in education. We've got a generational and existential crisis. Do you know what percentage of Texas eighth graders are proficient in reading and mathematics in Texas? It's 24%. 24. We have a government monopoly that is not even educating a full quarter of Texas students. So forget, civics and economics. These kids are going to be given diplomas. They can't read. So we've got to do the basics better. In the state of Texas, we should be leading. I want Texas to be number one in everything. That includes education, that includes freedom, that includes liberty. And people believe that about us. They think we're this bright red bastion of sort of libertarian utopianism, but it's not true. We're a big, red, progressive, big government marching towards nanny state progressivism, especially SB3 and then these hemp bans and other things.
Yeah, and that's
out of control down here.
It's not great for the country either, because Texas is kind of a bellwether for public education in a lot of ways.
Well, and not just in public education, but I believe as goes Texas, so goes the nation. And people don't talk about Texas as a battleground state, but let me be super clear about this. Texas is the crown jewel of the left's plan to take over America. If we ever lose Texas, if ever Texas goes truly blue, Republicans will never be back in the White House. So I don't know what state you're listening in, but every American, no matter where you are, you really need to care about what's going on down here in Texas, because we are the line in the sand for the future of our country.
I agree. And as this continues to happen, and somebody on Twitter last night hit me up about this in regards to the riots and everything else of like, oh, no, it's beautiful in my area. It's not in my backyard, so I don't go there. And it feels as if Californians just kind of abandoned some of these cities and be willing to take an L for it. I hope that does not happen in Texas, but it seems like it's inevitable because...
Well, and look how fast things can change. I mean, yeah. I'm not from California, y'all are, but it's hard for people to get their heads around that California is a beautiful state that once, not even that long ago, really voted 4 separate times for Ronald Reagan. I mean, just look at just in the span of a generation, how far and how fast that's moved. And for people to think that could never happen in Texas, that is not true. It could happen here, and we have got to be more vigilant than ever to make sure it doesn't. And the problem is the current leadership in the Texas government, we are trending towards California. at an alarming rate.
Yeah, you mentioned HB3 with the THC stuff. What most people haven't figured out yet, I suppose, is that the funding for all the propaganda behind this stuff, partially from the alcohol lobby and then partially from companies that already have licensure in Texas to sell medical marijuana, right? Like, why would they be funding to criminalize it? Oh, of course, because they're already in and they're pulling the ladder up behind them. This is like there's got to be some line where lobbying becomes criminal, bribery, right? I just don't understand what that line is or why we don't even like. Especially since Citizens United federally, but that has nothing to do with local state politics. Like I don't understand why everybody just looks at that. Everybody knows what's happening that's up there, right? And nobody really seems to have anything to say about that.
Well, and what's really shocking and disappointing is I have no idea how in the Texas House of Representatives, I believe I was there might have been one other Republican that had the courage to say, you know what, this exceeds the proper role of government. This is liberal, this is progressive, this is nanny-statism. And to your point, it's not even a conspiracy theory that the alcohol beverage industry was pushing this. I mean, you can go read the promotional materials supporting SB3 with their letterhead on it. And I'll tell you who the big winners are on this SB3, the hemp ban. It's the drug cartels, it's the alcohol industry, it's the pharmaceutical industry, because what we're going to do is we're going to be pushing adults who either want or rely on these products into either a completely unregulated black market or to more addictive and deadly pharmaceuticals that we do know are killing people. And so whether this thing was well-intended or not, look, everybody wants to protect kids. I want to protect kids. But this bill went so far beyond that, and how embarrassing that the supposedly freedom-loving state of Texas is adopting these big liberal nanny state policies. And then just a few days later, we banned almost all vapes in the state of Texas. It's outrageous.
It is. And we'll stick with weed here because to your points, people are going to get it no matter what. And it's going to be the cartels that come across. Mexico is obviously right underneath this here. So that's going to create more crime. The businesses that it'll take away, and I read this number, and you can fact check me on it, was we would lose right around 53,000 to 54,000 jobs for the people that work in the hemp industry and do it, let alone the local small businesses, let's just take in our area, that sell it and everything else. Also, the taxes from it. We could tax the hell out of it the same as everybody else does, actually make some more money either for education, which a lot of states do, or it gets pumped back in so we're not paying $1 gajillion in property taxes a year. And if you're trying to, draw tourism and everything else in here, it's very, very archaic, these laws, and if they are put into place, what's going to happen? Is there a shot that Abbott will veto this?
I hope so. I think I'm the only elected Republican in Texas who has publicly called for the governor to veto this bill. I actually have called for him to veto 13 of the worst pieces of legislation, including our massive bloated progressive budget. But yeah, the potentially ravaging effects on our economy are very real. I think the numbers are correct. Over 50,000 jobs, I think between 8 and 10,000 small businesses, and that's before you even get to the impact of the millions of Texans who these are patriotic Texans, by the way. I mean, these are people who love their state, they love their country. Many of them have, and this is what they say, is what they tell me, they have found these products to be a safer and more beneficial to them and to the improvement quality of life than their very addictive and potentially fatal pharmaceuticals, which many of them were on. So why in the world would the supposedly freedom-loving state of Texas do something that's going to ravage our economy and upend tens of thousands of jobs and potentially harm millions of lives? We're going to turn otherwise law-abiding, patriotic, freedom-loving men and women of the state of Texas into criminals for what? So that we can help the cartels and help the pharmaceutical industry and help the prison industry. I mean, this is insanity. I hope Governor Abbott does the right thing and vetoes that bill, because Texans deserve bold, conservative, pro-liberty leadership.
Now,
we haven't had that.
I just want to I don't know that there's necessarily any historical evidence that prohibition leads to criminal activity. Right?
Or there is.
Yeah,
or there's
it's really hard to find an example.
Yeah, or there's a ton of it.
So it's only criminal activity. Okay.
Yeah,
all right,
yeah.
Great. So yeah, by the way, people that try to moralize all this shit, certainly again, this is just understand history. Weed was made illegal and then even elevated to a Schedule I narcotic, which is insane. because of the timber industry, not because people were getting high. They didn't care about that. No, it was that like hemp was competing with the timber industry. The timber industry spent the equivalent of tens of millions of dollars back then lobbying Congress to make it illegal. That's what happened.
Yeah.
So this isn't new, by the way. This shit's been going on for a long time. It's just that we thought maybe a place like Texas might be a little bit more resistant to that, as you call it, the big nanny state nonsense.
Well, people think that, but unfortunately, it's just not true. And you were asking, the Trump agenda. I mean, I don't think any of this stuff is terribly in line with the Trump agenda. I mean, I was in the Trump administration. I was his chief of staff at the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. And in 2018, it was President Trump that signed the bill that legalized these hemp products. And then Texas did a state-level version that recently followed suit. And President Trump tweeted out just a few months ago that he plans to save vapes again so that people have safer alternatives to very deadly combustible cigarettes. And you've got the Texas government going not just in lockstep with the Trump administration, but directly in the opposite direction towards progressive nanny state style liberalism. So this stuff needs to be vetoed. There's still a small window, and I hope the governor does the right thing. In fact, I joked with people, I put it on Twitter the other day, made people angry. I joked that if I were the governor of Texas, my staff would be having to shop for veto pins, at the Costco or the Sam's Club. I mean, we'd be having to buy veto pins in bulk to save Texas from the damaging, big government liberal bills that were passed in this past session.
Yeah, and to your point earlier about Texas and the dangers of it turning blue and how everybody should wake up, as of 14 minutes ago, the Wall Street Journal just posted a group backed by George Soros to plow millions into turning Texas blue. Initiative will attempt to bolster Democrats' hope of making Texas competitive after failing to win any statewide races since '94. Now, the project they are calling this, which is a Texas Majority PAC, which is Soros funded, is going to be called Blue Texas. And that's going to start immediately. So clearly, they think they have a shot at flipping this state. Otherwise, they wouldn't dump millions into the politics.
And like I said before, I mean, Texas, we're this bright red state, reelected Trump by 14 points, but make no mistake about it. I'll say it again. Texas is the crown jewels of the progressive leftist plan to take over this country. But here's the more insidious thing. So people see that. They see the Soros money, and they think, okay, he's going to fund all these Democrats. But we got to be a little bit more sophisticated now, in Texas, because we have this unique problem down here. It's not just human beings that put the word Democrat by their name and run for office. That's not the real danger, because we electorally have been able to keep them at bay. The more insidious problem is people who put the word Republican by their name, who are actually liberal Democrats, but they know they can't get elected if they self-identify. At least in California, the Democrats self-identify. In Austin, we have an actual uniparty because we have actual Democrats that govern with Republicans. And even worse, though, we have people who are actually Democrats secretly, but they wear the Republican brand on their name tag, and they put Republican on their material because they know that's the only way they can get elected. So the real danger is from within in the state of Texas, and from weak liberal establishment rhinos that have too much power in the Austin swamp. I mean, that's the real immediate threat. But Soros, the leftists, the Democrats, they want to take over the state of Texas. Make no mistake about it.
Well, here's what I want to commend you on, first of all, in regards to Twitter and social media and everything else. I don't know if that was you personally or your team who set this up. I think it is unbelievably.
People think I have some kind of a team. It's me pulling out my phone. That's if you see something coming out, it's 99% of the time it's me typing it on my phone here.
Even better, because this is what I would recommend for any serious Republican in the state of Texas. Start doing this. Not only does it provide you with transparency, it makes us believe in you, and you also need a name when you go to the ballot box. There's no reason somebody like Jasmine Crockett should be in Congress, for Christ's sakes. But she has developed a name. She's always saying crazy shit in the news. We all know who that is now. And let's face it, a lot of people are just proud to say, hey, do you know where I live? No, I've never heard of it. Oh, it's Jasmine Crockett's district. Oh, all right, cool. Yeah, I know where that is. And they don't, unfortunately. And it's become about a brand. It's become about a name. And it's become about getting on social media and developing yourself. I think Republicans need to do a better job of that. Who else should we be looking out for and voting for in the upcoming 2026 election that maybe isn't that famous, that you should say, hey, these people will actually fight for us?
Well, look, I don't know that the field is still taking shape across, at pretty much every level of Texas government. I got like 10 months or so to go. But I would say, to your point, I think the reason that people have gravitated towards my X feed, and by the way, it's at Brian E. Harrison for everybody who wants to follow at Brian E. Harrison. But the reason that I think people have gravitated to that and to podcasts and to non-traditional media is because I think conservative Texans who are Republicans, they're starving for elected officials to tell them the truth, the good, the bad, and the ugly. They've had 10, 15, 20 years of elected Republicans in Texas that go down to Austin, they sell them out, they vote for big government nonsense, but then they come home and gaslight the voters, and that's what we're seeing right now. I mean, almost all of the uniparty Austin swamp is engaged in what I call Operation Gaslight the Voters. We passed the Biden agenda, but then they run home and pretend there's some, Donald Trump MAGA, warrior, fighting for small government and liberty. But it's just all a complete lie. And I think Texas voters are more sophisticated now. Their eyes are being opened, and they are starving for elected officials at all levels to just level with them. Tell us the truth. What are we doing good? What are we doing poorly? Where do we need to focus our attention on? Who's lying to you? Who's a shyster? Or who is somebody you can trust? And so I really think that the non-traditional media and social media has totally reshaped, or is in the process of reshaping the landscape that gives people who actually care about liberty and small government a way to go straight to the people. Because, I think we need unity in this country. Like, people don't like the labels, the left, the right, Republicans, Democrats, progressives, libertarians. I think the labels are confusing and people don't know what they mean anymore. But I think the core tenets of liberty, less government, let people live their lives the way they see fit, because I trust them and their faith and their families and way more than I'm ever going to trust Austin politicians and bureaucrats. And I think that sort of unifying message is what not just Texans, but people all across the country are starving for.
Yeah, and I think you have to something I like to do when I'm tackling an issue is take it all the way to its logical conclusion, certainly, but also all the way back to its underlying principle. So I ask myself, because we were talking about this last week, actually, how do you, we could elect 538 new people to the federal government, but how do we know any of them is going to actually do what they said they were going to do? Because the people that are there right now are not doing it, right?
No, and we were already lied to once.
Yeah.
And they all say the right things when they're campaigning, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So one of the things is, one, it's accountability. It's about elections, right? But even then, how do you know somebody's telling the truth or not in your daily life, right? Mm-hmm. You have to know the information. If somebody says, "Oh, we can do X, Y, and Z and accomplish A," like, well, no, you can't actually, because the Constitution says this, dumbass. Like, and you don't know that.
No, for example, the Constitution requires us that we have 100 members, or we can't pass laws. Well, multiple times this session, our corrupt uniparty leadership tried to gavel in when there were only 20 or 30 people on the floor. And they raised holy hell because I simply was like, I'm going to request a recorded roll call because we don't have a quorum, guys.
Yeah.
But we all took an oath to the Constitution, but they don't care about the Constitution.
Yeah.
They just don't.
It's just stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like,
why do we have 100 in Texas? Like, that makes no sense.
Even at the federal level, people try to, and this is something that people have rightly known to some degree. At least social media has helped quite a bit. During the periods where forced vaccination was attempted and bans of certain types of firearms, blah, 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 that weren't voted on by the legislature, right? That's a legislative issue, not a judicial issue. And it's certainly not a bureaucratic issue from the executive. The executive doesn't have the power to do that, no matter who they are. Like banning bump stocks, for example. That was completely outside the purview of the executive branch, frankly, right? Mm-hmm. And it was an assault on our fundamental liberties. But you have to know that. You have to know what the roles of government are, how power separated, all that stuff.
Sure, go ahead.
Because this is, I think, I'm so glad you brought this up, the power of the executive, because I think it's one of maybe the biggest issue that almost nobody wants to talk about anymore. And DOJ and kind of stuff, the deregulatory policy was in the mainstream finally, in the Supreme Court shutting down Chevron or whatever, the Chevron deference, which, by the way, Texas still has Chevron deference in Texas. How embarrassing is that? But it's the issue of unelected bureaucrats wielding the power that our framers of our Constitution gave only to elected officials in the legislative branch. And think about, just to tell you one statistic, just how bad this is. For every one law that Congress passes, unelected bureaucrats in the executive branch agencies issue 20 regulations. Okay, they call them regs, but they're laws. They have the force and effect of law. You can get criminal offenses if you don't follow them. But no congressman or senator or president signed off on it, or maybe the president, but no congressman or senator voted on it. And so what does that mean? Think about this real quick. I'm going to shock you. Everyone's seen Schoolhouse Rock and how a bill becomes a law. But what that means is, with one law creating 20 regulations, that means Congress is only voting on 5% of all the laws that govern the people, the supposedly supposed to be free people in the United States of America anymore. And we've got to get the power back to the legislative branch, because that's the branch that's most directly accountable to the people. But almost nobody talks about that.
Yeah, and I will say this, as far as the people moving in from California who are bringing their politics in there, we also have an influx of people who are leaving Austin who said that they've been outpriced. And they were like, look, if we're paying the same price as California is in regards to property taxes and everything else, I'd rather live in greater weather and not a fucking furnace. I understand that, but also we need to keep these people here in order for the state to thrive, in order for all the tech companies and everyone else to be here, and also we need jobs. The problem is, if we don't start changing some of these laws, yes, you're going to outprice not only Austin, but everywhere in the state of Texas in regards to property taxes and everything else. So again, what do we do? I just don't know what to do anymore.
Well, I think you've got to the easy one is to get rid of these crushing property taxes, because what's happening, it's not even like we have a fair system of property taxation where everybody's treated the same. We don't. What we're doing is we're running out conservative Texans. We're pricing conservative Texans who maybe have a mom and pop shop. They've been serving their community for decades or generations. They're being given the full burden of the property taxes. But what the government's doing, people don't know this. They hear about these companies moving in from California thinking they're coming here because of our low regulatory policy and low taxes. That's a lie. They're moving here because the Texas government is stealing money out of the back pockets of hardworking Texans and using that money to do two things. We're bribing the companies to move here from California, New York, and other things. On the front end, we're literally saying, hey, we'll help your closing costs, your transaction costs. We, the taxpayers, will force the taxpayers to pay for you to come here. Oh, and then when you get here, we're going to give you all these massive tax abatements so you don't even have to pay property taxes. Meanwhile, the mom and pop shop down the street, they're paying full freight, and they're the ones that are being forced to leave. And look, you talk about people coming from California. I got Californians moving into my district too in New York. And I would say this, if you love liberty and freedom and the principles that made our state and our country great, I welcome you with open arms. But the problem is we're bribing these companies with tax dollars, and sometimes these companies are bringing their progressive liberal employees with them, almost against their will, and we're running out because we're pricing them out of their homes. We're taxing hardworking conservative Texans out of their homes. It's completely backwards. And let me say real quick on this property taxes. I mean, I could talk about the economics or the fiscal impacts of this all day long. This is a moral issue. This is an ethical issue. If you have never-ending property taxes, you can never own your home. You can never own your business. And even if you pay off your mortgage, you can call yourself a homeowner, but you try not paying your property tax bill at the end of the year, and you'll find out real quick who owns your home. And guess what? It ain't you. You're just a tenant, and the only landlord in the state of Texas is the government. That's immoral, it's unethical, and we need to get rid of property taxes in the state of Texas. And we failed miserably to even address that issue this session.
I agree, because let's say most people, put the 20% down, they get a 30-year mortgage. Not only are they paying the property taxes, we've been honest here, the commercial properties that we own on 290 here, paying $30,000 a year in property taxes, which is pure insanity.
Well, and the property tax bills that we just passed, by the way, you're going to get hosed. The commercial property guys, we gave basically no relief in our budget to you. So your property taxes are about to go up, even as everybody in the Austin swamp is bragging about the biggest property tax cut in history. It's just not true.
Yeah, because the other part of this is you have to hire a lawyer. They get 30%. Oh, hey, we'll do it up front, and then we'll take 30% of whatever the money we're able to knock off your property taxes are, which also seems illegal.
You know what it sounds like? It sounds like divorce court. It sounds like a court that was set up to be adversarial when it needn't be, just so lawyers could make fucking money. That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, because the other part is, let's take, if you lease a car for your company, which we do, and we have employees, there is a property tax on a leased vehicle here. Now, when I got the call from GMC regarding this, I said, hey, they were like, your property tax is due. And I said, for what? I don't own that car. I leased that car for employees. What are we paying a property tax on a leased vehicle for employees for?
You shouldn't be. It's outrageous. And you know what? I'm sick and tired. It's like the government, you said adversarial. The government, we have one real job. The number one role of government, everyone forgets this, is to protect our inalienable freedoms, rights, and liberties. They don't come from government. Government is entrusted to protect them. But what we've got at the federal levels, and then I hate to say this, at the state level in Texas too, it feels like, because it's true, government at basically every opportunity. If you're a productive person, you want to work hard, you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to start a business, or you've got a business, you want to grow a business, At every turn, the government is there not to support you, not to help you, but the government is there to create more taxes, more regulations, and make it harder for small businesses to succeed. And it should be the exact opposite in the state of Texas. And our property tax, but there's just no way to say it.
No, there isn't. And you shouldn't have a property tax on something you don't own. And that's we lease a car, and I'm getting a property tax on something I'm leasing that I do not own. Also, healthcare here. Healthcare seems to be on the rise at a crazy rate. I deal with the back end as far as the books go for most of these companies, and I'm seeing this number rise over and over and over. Why is that healthcare seems to be rising in the state of Texas?
Well, I'll tell you why. So Obamacare absolutely ravaged small businesses, the gig economy, entrepreneurs by putting all of these unnecessary mandates into all of these health plans. I mean, it destroyed the individual market in healthcare. And instead of Texas saying, you know what, we're going to do everything we can to focus on free market principles and free market solutions to healthcare so that we can have more custom tailored options, more affordable options. We've done the opposite. This is going to shock you. Talk about becoming California. This is the stuff people don't know. Texas, we have tripled down on the worst elements of Obamacare. We have, if we're not number one, we may be number 2 or 3. We may even have more healthcare mandates on our insurance companies than California and New York. If we don't have more than them, we're really close. And so that's one of the biggest reasons is that we mandate all these plans cover all of these services that most people, quite frankly, don't need. And what that does is it drives up the premiums and it crushes small businesses. It crushes freelancers. It crushes entrepreneurs. And instead of Texas, again, leading the way like our reputation would have people to believe that we're small government, low regulations, it's the opposite. We've got California-style mandates on almost every healthcare insurance plan in the state of Texas. And it's outrageous.
I agree. And as a small business owner for over 20 years now, and this will date back to California, healthcare was another one that was crushing. You're right. Property taxes, absolutely crushing for families and businesses, and in particular, obviously, the commercial spaces and everything else. And what that's going to do is either force employers for everybody to get on Obamacare or pay in some fee for their health insurance. And, you know, obviously the property tax issue still can't figure out. So that's another one that's left over. But if you're from California and you're looking at what's going on in Texas, you're saying, hey, I could live here. Granted, the people are shitty, but the weather's nicer. And I don't care if certain parts of the state burn down. As long as it's fine where I am, I'm okay. And I don't need to move to Texas like everybody else. So as far as the legislation goes and what's coming down the pipeline, what is next and what can Texans do to help stop some of these votes? We'll start with marijuana first and then property taxes second.
Well, I mean, we've got a brief window on the hemp bill, SB 3. The governor can and should do the right thing and veto that bill. He should veto the ban on all vape products. He should veto the budget. These are the no-brainer, low-hanging fruit. Just sign your name to a piece of paper, kill those bad big government bills. And then one thing that Texans can do as we head into the primary season, figure out who represents you at the state level, okay? And given that Austin is basically a corrupt uniparty swamp of liberalism, okay, it's corrupt, they should find out who is the state rep, who's your state senator, who are your statewide elected officials, get them on the phone, call them, email them, tag them on Facebook, find them on X, and ask them this question. Don't ask, they're going to have boilerplate answers to, oh, are you Republican, are you Democrat, you like Trump? They're going to have the answers to that. Ask them a specific question. Ask them, what have you done to prove you're fighting for liberty against the corrupt leadership in the Austin swamp? And if they can't give you a specific example where they stood on principle in defiance of liberal big government policies that were pushed by Republicans, if they can't give you an example, I'd start looking for someone else to represent you.
Including the other side.
Sure.
Yeah. Because, I mean, at this point, it's just the idea. I want to win the game. I don't care who scores the final touchdown here.
Yeah.
And that's the issue.
Well, we can't even have an honest conversation.
Because in Texas, it's not so. The fights aren't really Republican versus Democrat. There's just not enough Democrats down there. The fights are between Republicans, who there's very few of us, who actually care about the principles of liberty and making Texas the state that everybody outside of Texas think that Texas is, versus somebody who just wears the Republican brand because they know they got to get elected. So yeah, it's not so much red team, blue team. It's who's fighting for the people back home versus who's bought and paid for and sold their soul for momentary popularity in the swamp of Austin. That's the real battle.
Well, that's the problem, I guess, with the uniparty in general, but also with having a single representative party. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like the fight stops becoming between mom and dad. And it's just one.
No, that's right, and that's why there's so much confusion right now because everyone's declaring, "Oh, it was the most conservative session ever," and all these political scientists and these pundits are like, "Oh, well, it must have been a conservative session because look at all the Republican bills that passed the Senate, look at all the Republican bills that passed the House." But people are conflating the two terms. They're saying, "Well, if it was a Republican bill, it must have been good. It must have been for liberty or small government." Just because it's a Republican bill in Texas doesn't mean it couldn't have been the exact same bill that was filed by and passed by Democrats in California or New York. So we got to go now, and I know it's hard. The voters are getting exhausted, but you got to. It's not just quite good enough to go and punch the button for a Republican. You got to figure out who are the people that are actually out there fighting for freedom, and who are the people that are just using Republican as top cover to advance progressive policies.
Well, it's exhausting because it seems like most people are lying. I would love if everybody had a body cam on them, essentially the way that you have every single day when you go into Congress. That makes everybody accountable. But unfortunately,
you should see. By the way, you should see. It's like rats fleeing a ship or cockroaches in a dark corner of a room. When they see me pull out my phone and they can tell I'm turning the video camera on. I mean, they are running They are running to every corner of the room. It's comical.
I agree, and as we're going along throughout this process here, I would like to see more people do that. I would like to see more of these bills passed. But if you're working together, I know Elon had said, should we have another party over weekend? There was a poll on there, believe what you will, about polls, but over 2 million people voted. They called it the America Party, which is hilarious because that was a podcast created by you a long time back in the day. Are we headed toward that we need a new party? Because it doesn't seem like either one is working for us.
Well, what I can tell you right now is that Republican governance hasn't saved Texas from the influence of the left. And in fact, I'll shock people to learn this. In 2003, voters gave, for the first time, Republicans had control of every part of the Texas government, all the statewide, governor, lieutenant governor, House, Senate. And a good friend of mine, a former top Trump White House economist, Van Skin, and I have released some data about 5 or 6 months ago showing that government in Texas has grown bigger and at a faster rate under all Republican control than it did when it was under all Democrat control. So whether the solution is a new party or not is almost, I don't know the answer to that right now. I've been a Republican, I'm a proud Republican, but the reality is it's not as simple as it used to be. Republican versus Democrat, Republican small government, Democrat big government, Republican low tax, Democrat high tax. That's just not true. And in fact, I joke sometimes that in Austin, if the only thing you know about a politician is that they're a Republican and you don't know anything else about that person, I'm not even sure there's a single issue that you can say with any certainty that person holds. We have so diluted the brand. I mean, what does it even mean to be a Republican in Texas anymore? This is a real existential question that I think the party's got to grapple with.
It is, and not just, again, at a state level, but at a federal level as well. Even the Doge cuts that Elon made, none of them have been codified into law. So it sounds great. He found the waste. He did the job that he was supposed to do. Obviously, he was frustrated enough to get out of there, but that spilled over, obviously, into the public. I'm frustrated as a voter because that's exactly what I voted for, and it doesn't seem like the Congress or the Senate is going to pass it. And then with you, Dan, what is the final solution? I mean, for real, like I'm asking a million questions. I never feel like we get an answer, though, of what we can do.
The solution is to have government operate the way it's intended to be, the way that everything in nature is intended to be, which is to say polarized, right? We are binary creatures by nature. We need mom and dad. We need masculinity and femininity. We need empathy. We need strength. We need all these things. And we need them to compete with each other. Not like people are like, oh, we need people in Washington to work together. No, we don't. What are you talking about? When politicians work together, everybody suffers. Mm-hmm. They are meant to represent the fundamental poles of human nature, right? Empathy and strength, and compete against one another so we find ourselves in some sort of symbiosis between those two things, right? Because we need to be empathetic. People need help. We also need to be strong because we don't have a civilization without it. That's what we need. We need Republicans to be Republican, and we need Democrats to be Democrat, period. We don't need a third party. All it would do is split parts of the center right off. And they would get 15 to 18% of the vote, and Democrats would win everything forever. It's fucking stupid, frankly, in my opinion.
Well,
we saw it with Ross Perot twice in the 90s.
Real quick.
Yes.
I want to just echo this real quick. You said, everyone getting along is actually kind of a problem. Nobody campaigns saying, vote for me, and I will go down to Austin, or vote for me, and I'll go to Washington, and I'll get along with everybody. That's not what we're elected for. The people I work for don't work in the Capitol. And that's the thing. We need people willing to go down there and amongst their new peer group of other elected officials be willing to be the person in the room that says, even though you don't want to hear it, no. We need elected officials. When somebody has some idea, it's always, oh, it's for the kids, or it's for this or that, to make somebody safe, whatever. We need politicians with the courage, the backbone, the conviction, the strength to say, I don't care how well-intended that idea is. We all know what they say about the road to hell is paved with, right? I am going to say no, I'm going to vote against this, and I'm going to expose the reasons that we should not do that thing. And I put on Twitter the other day, one of the reasons I voted against the hemp ban, one of the reasons I voted against the vape ban is because the government is not supposed to be your parent. And people forget a couple core tenets. You talked about going back to principles. Well, there's two that I always try to remind people. Number one, just because something's a good thing, that you think's a good thing, that doesn't mean that government should subsidize it by stealing money from one Texan to give to another Texan to subsidize that thing just because you politicians think it's good. But the converse of that's also true. Just because there's something that you think's bad or something that you don't like, that doesn't necessarily mean it's the role of government to ban that thing. And people forget or don't even want to talk about what is the proper role of government anymore.
Yeah, they don't at all. And I'm obviously, you're probably following what's going on in Los Angeles and the riots that are happening in regards to the ICE raids and everything else. We have a reporter here that we send out for massive stories to cover things like this. And over the weekend, he covered the San Antonio protests that were going on in regards to ICE. With the amount of Latino people that live in the state of Texas, what's to say that this isn't coming here soon and that some of our own cities in Texas will eventually start to burn down if these protests continue to grow?
Well, I think it's very possible, and that's why I think I'm glad to see President Trump and his administration taking the situation out there seriously, because Lord knows the governor and mayor are not going to do anything serious about this. But it's absolutely a real problem. And back to there's sort of a trend here throughout our theme running throughout our whole discussion here, which is Texas turning blue or Texas marching towards progressivism. The big cities in Texas and the big counties our biggest cities have turned blue. Our biggest counties are blue. And so everything that you're seeing in these dysfunctional blue states, that absolutely could come here, and it could come here a lot sooner than people want to realize. And thank God for rural Texas. Rural Texas is the reason that we're still a red state. But yeah, so I think it's absolutely a very real concern, and I hope that it gets shut down quickly out there in LA.
But these protests are going on, and they were happening this weekend in San Antonio. Now, these were stoked by their own politicians out in California and emboldened them to do what they did over the weekend here. But it feels like we're this close because California and Texas feel very, very similar here. We had the summer of love when we moved here with the BLM riots in 2020. Yeah. That wasn't great. And have you guys put preparations in place just in case something like that breaks out? Because as you mentioned, most of these cities are blue here. Austin, San Antonio, Houston.
You guys are down in Austin, you know this. I've seen, I walk outside the Capitol. I've seen just about every protest for every kind of leftist agenda you can imagine break out in the streets of Austin. So yeah, it's happening here. The stuff is happening. It's just not happening anywhere near the scale that we're seeing coming out of LA right now.
Not yet, but it's coming, it feels like, because especially a lot of these guys feel like they're funded. Somebody is funding some of these groups to go in there. We've seen Pallet of Bricks over the weekend being dropped off pallet after pallets in some of these cities, and then you see, boom, they're throwing them at ice trucks immediately. Clearly, somebody didn't just forget a pallet of bricks on their way home from Home Depot.
No, I come from my dad was a small home builder for 40 years, so I come from a small home building family. I can assure you, pallets of bricks don't just magically show up somewhere. It's actually a pain in the butt to get the right number of pallets where you want them to go. So somebody is putting some real work into these supposedly organic protests that are going on out there. And yes, and this is, I think, just to highlight your point about it's coming here or it could or who knows, we have got to maintain vigilance in Texas. There's a lot of people that just think it's okay. Hey, we're Texas. This kind of thing could never come here. It absolutely can.
It can. It can. And it's something to keep an eye on. I know you're an extremely busy man and you're working your ass off for us. And we appreciate it. We just wish we had 99 more of you in there. And I know it sounds like a red balloon theory here, but it really is with 100 people. And we're grateful for the time today. Now's the point in the show we get to the Drinking Bro of the Week, which is someone who has inspired you or helped you become the person you are today. Who would you like to give the Drinking Bro of the Week to?
Oh my gosh, this is a hard question for me. Look, I learned a lot from the years I spent working under President Trump, but I also watched the movie Reagan with my kids last night. So I would say a combination of the two: bold, fearless, sunny, optimism, patriotism, making people proud to be Americans, making people proud to be Texans, and remembering and never losing sight of the fact that generations that came before us bled, paid the ultimate price so that you and I can be sitting here on a podcast talking about drinking and freedom and liberty in the middle of the week. So I would say a combination of those two.
Okay, great. So yeah, because for us, we've had these conversations with guys like you, and there's a very few amount of you who are out there trying to do the right thing. Everybody else will say and say they're lie and say they're going to do the right thing. They never do at the end of the day. And a lot of this feels hopeless. I know you've got a lot of hope for the state of Texas. We're teetering here on this side because I'm not sure how this is going to shake out when, again, most of these Republicans are voting for Democratic policies.
Well, do you guys have kids? I feel like
I do. I've got 3, and that's what concerns me the most.
How old are they?
11, 6, and 3. I coach most of their sports.
All right, brother. So we're in the ballpark. I've got 4 kids between 5 years old and 10 years old. And here's the thing: like, there are a lot of people who are like, "Hey, Brian, you're fighting like hell, but we're watching you. You feel like it's like you're putting your head through a brick wall every day in the Capitol. You know, it's too far gone, whatever." And I'm like, you know what? I can't give in to that. As depressing as the news is, because I've got 4 reasons why I do what I do. And it's Hudson, Tucker, Hayes, and Violet. I will be damned if my state and my country turn into a progressive hellhole and I didn't do everything I could, no matter who it pissed off in the swamp, to make sure that my kids could inherit the blessings of liberty that people before us paid a much greater price than just having, nasty articles written about you. And so if you're those kids in the same age group, like, you've got to remember it's about those guys. It's about the next generation. But if we don't maintain vigilance now, history, as Reagan once said, history will record with the greatest of astonishments that those who had the most to lose did the least to prevent its happening. And I pray those words are never said about me when I'm done.
Well, we'll find out. Time will tell. We'll be following you, Brian. So if you switch, dude, we'll be on your ass. I love you.
I hope you do. Call me out. Call me out.
Because look, back in the day, we helped out Crenshaw and a bunch of other guys here in Texas. Jared, our co-host, even shot all the commercials for his campaign, but he got in there. He changed. It seems like once everybody gets in there, they ultimately change, and they're not the same person. However, you are in there, and you're the only one that's fighting like this. So just need to find more people like you. That's all.
Well, I appreciate the work you guys are doing to open the eyes of maybe people who haven't traditionally followed this stuff as much. Because, that's the thing. I think liberty is unifying, and you guys exposing the corruption, not just of Democrats, but of fake, weak-kneed Republicans. I think that's probably the number one thing that we can do right now, is just tell people the truth about what's going on both in D.C. and in Austin. So I'm really appreciative to you guys doing that and for reaching out and inviting me on. I've really enjoyed the discussion.
Absolutely. Same here. And we've said this on the show time and time again. I don't care if there's an R or a D next to your name. If you're doing the right thing, we'd love to have you on the show and discuss it, because we need more people out there who are actually fighting for Americans rather than their own home team. So thank you, Brian, and thank you to your team back there. I believe it was Charles Wright I spoke with.
Yeah, Charles and Cassie probably talked to you, but
give Charles a raise. He was working on Sunday morning. I got a text at 9 a.m. on a Sunday, which is rare. Usually having Dunkin' Donuts with the kids.
I'm blessed. I've got the hardest working team in the legislature. So.
Yeah, thank you, sir. We appreciate it.
I've enjoyed the discussion. Reach out anytime, and God bless y'all, and God bless the great state of Texas.
Absolutely. And lastly, tell everybody where they can find you on social media so they can continue to see what's going on here.
Yeah, make the leftists crazy. Go follow me on X, at Brian E. Harrison, on Twitter, at Brian E. Harrison.
Okay, perfect. And how about Instagram? Anything?
You know what? People are telling me I'm behind the times. I had never even tweeted until 3 years ago. So I'm new to social media. I don't yet have an Instagram account, but I'm told that I got to get on that this summer.
I definitely would, but let's face it, somebody might ban it in Congress. I'm going to see.
I do have Facebook. I'm being reminded. I Vote Brian Harrison on Facebook is Vote Brian Harrison on Facebook, but
Perfect.
Being told that's not it.
Well, when it comes up for re-election,
Representative Brian Harrison.
Yeah, just pop on into the studio when it comes to re-election. We'd love to have you in person.
Let's do it in studio. I'd love to do it.
All right, thank you, sir. Take care.
Take care, y'all. See ya.
It's Brian Harrison, one of the good guys down here in Texas, and yeah, we need a ton more like him here, D'Anthony. So what do we do? What do we do at the end of the day here, man?
Well, the first thing you got to do is educate yourself. You have to you have to know when somebody's lying to you. Otherwise, what are you gonna do, right?
I don't know.
There's nothing to be done if you don't first educate yourself, and and then demand it of other people. Don't shame. It plays a very powerful role in all of this. Somebody says something dumb politically, and you're like, you show them why they're wrong, and you say, no, that's stupid what you just said, and it's wrong, and you're hurting this country by believing it, right? I think that's a really important part of it. You don't have to be a dick about it, but you do need to shame people because what's the opposite of shame?
Success, I guess?
Pride.
Okay.
Pride is the opposite of shame. And national pride, state pride, whatever it happens to be, is a fundamental part of making something great. As G.K. Chesterton said, men didn't love Rome because she was great. Rome was great because the men had loved her. And part of loving something is understanding it. And if you don't understand the Constitution, your state constitution, and the way the government operates, why do you think you should be allowed to even participate in it?
Yeah, but let's take the people who do, and then you vote for the wrong people who are lying, which, again, is half the Republicans here, at least down in Texas. And shit, then you got to wait another 2, potentially 4 years for this. Isn't one of them 6?
Senate, federal Senate, yeah.
Jesus Christ, man. I mean, that's a long time. 6 years is longer than a president, for Christ's sakes. So that's a long time. Is Gary back there? Gary, you just got back from San Antonio. Why don't you pop on up and grab the mic here? You got to see these protests firsthand. Take your time, Gary. We got all day here. We're going to live forever. There you go.
What's up, guys?
Hey, how are you? How are you, buddy?
Fucking feeling pretty good.
Man, you look great. Whatever the opposite of that is. How was it in San Antonio this weekend, and what were those protests like?
Well, San Antonio is a nice place, and the protest did remain peaceful. We marched in a circle around the city, and it started at City Hall,
okay,
and it ended at City Hall, Ross.
And what were they marching for? Rights to stay in the country illegally?
Well, look, let me explain how this all went down here. We got a tip to go down to the immigration courthouse because we were told that these illegals that were getting their hearings were being arrested as they were leaving. So we went down there to check that out. And then that turned into, a couple days later, this protest. And they were protesting for immigrants' rights. It was being organized by the PSL, the Party of Socialism and Liberation, the San Antonio branch of that organization. I haven't done a deep dive yet into where they started or what their background is, but that's who was organizing and funding this. And it was about immigrants' rights, illegals' rights, basically. But
do they have any rights being illegal, Dan? I mean, shouldn't we just stop right there? The word is illegal, and that's it.
The threshold for these things are different. So people will say even immigrants, illegal immigrants, or whomever else have the right to due process, and that is correct, technically. But once the due process that they are afforded is only to protect American citizens, this is what I mean by that. The due process afforded to illegals is afforded to them to make sure that they are actually illegal and not an American citizen, right?
Yep.
Once they are adjudicated to be through evidence and illegal, rights are gone. All of them. You have no right to be here. In the first place, you have no rights that flow forth from presence as it is. And the way that some of these judges are treating that right now is absolutely fucking bananas.
Yes.
It's insane the way that it's being treated by these judges right now, and it can't continue.
It can't, but Gary, for me personally, and this is one of the reasons why we wanted you to go down there, what I said to Brian is true, man. I think we're going to see riots like we're seeing in Los Angeles. I'd give it 4 weeks, tops. And it's only because we haven't had that one case yet, or that one video that went viral.
Right.
Once we have it here, we will have the exact same thing in the state of Texas.
My buddy was telling me that earlier today he saw dozens and dozens of state troopers downtown Austin. So I think it's going to be much quicker than 4 weeks.
Okay.
Whatever happens in Austin, whether it's protesting or rioting or what have you. But the thing that was interesting to me about this was how the people we interviewed, some of them were waving LGBT rainbow flags. Some of them had Palestinian flags. Some of them had, Mexican flags. Some of them had American flags mixed with the Mexican. These people are all waving flags that aren't American flags, and their whole premise is that they want to stay in America.
Oh yeah, you know
Right.
what? Nobody loves Mexico more than people who refuse to fucking live there. Mm-hmm. Isn't that weird?
Or Palestine.
Yeah.
Or
Fuck
any of these
off.
other fucking countries. So I don't understand that whatsoever. It feels like everyone, Gary, and correct me if I'm wrong, wants to live here. They want the freedoms here of what we represent. However, they want their own fucking beliefs back in different countries that they fled from. The LGBTQ thing, I saw that over the weekend as well. People...
I asked about that, and
Pride
I
flags.
didn't get a real clear answer. Other than that, they said that it's the standard socialist vernacular. We stand in solidarity with this community. They're saying it's one big community.
Woke. It's woke. That's what woke is. Woke is Marxist, and Marxism is oppressor versus oppressed. The oppressor has no rights, no value. The oppressed can do anything they need to overcome them. Right? Mm-hmm. Terrorism. Murder, whatever the fuck, it doesn't matter, right?
Well, I pressed a couple of these people on the the angle of it being like a racial thing. Is it white people that are doing this or whatever? And actually, the people that I talked to, at least, they didn't seem to be the type that was saying, "Oh, it's the white man, this and that." You know what I mean? They didn't seem to view it through a racial filter like some of the other people do. But that being said, there were some other people there that just wouldn't talk to me. There were a lot of people that just wouldn't talk to press. Everybody actually was pretty open to talking to me, weirdly. I was kind of surprised. The only person I got in an argument with was another journalist there who said, and I quote, "I'm actually here working." As if Joel and I weren't.
Or what the definition is of a journalist today.
Well, yeah, and they're basically saying that Joel and I aren't real journalists because we're not credentialed. It's that same old bullshit where it's
called
a cult of
credentialism,
authority.
literally.
It's a fallacy in that somebody who's not already with the mainstream isn't a real.
Now, Gary, did you have
person.
a T-shirt on?
What?
Did you have a
a
T-shirt?
shirt
Did you have a
on?
shirt on, or did you have that press vest on?
I slowly declothed.
Okay.
It was 100 fucking degrees.
It was a lot hotter than that, friends. Yeah. When we landed from St. Louis, my God, I was shocked.
Now, perhaps he didn't take you seriously as a man without
you
a shirt.
as a man that did this. It was
Or
a
a
woman.
woman.
Was it a woman?
It's always a woman, Ross.
Was she white?
And yes, naturally. And also the person leading the protest was also a white woman. And I thought it was funny that this truck's driving around and all these minorities are following this truck. And the one person sitting down relaxing is this white woman screaming into a megaphone, demanding these minorities repeat what she's
Saying.
chanting to them.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if there's really anything there. It just was a funny thing to look at,
Sure.
But yeah, that was pretty much what it was. And we should have that out by either really late tonight, or I might just wait to put it out tomorrow. We're banging through it.
Okay. So give that Wednesday in Gary's time, CPT World Day.
No, it'll be tomorrow.
We'll get that Thursday
How
morning,
much?
bud.
I bet you a raise. I've already got most of it done. It was really simple, straightforward.
Okay.
We also got the Range Day episode out that we recorded, the Christmas special.
Yes.
That we recorded 7 months ago.
Yeah, there you go.
The
waited
Range
till
Day that
July.
Donut.
That's that
and
7-month
Brandon
edit,
Herrera
dude,
put
that'll
on.
get you,
What's that?
It's that 7-month edit that'll get you.
Yeah, it's a 7-month edit. It's worth it. You'll see. There's a special.
Wolf of
segment we got
Wall
with
Street was
Jack out
edited
there.
quicker than that, okay? Just quick heads up, 3.5-hour movie.
We weren't actually editing it the whole time. We forgot we recorded it.
Oh, even better.
Yeah, Chuck Liddell makes an appearance. Jack Mandeville has a special segment. We went to Jared's house. He wasn't even fucking there.
No need. No need.
But yeah, that one's really entertaining. This ICE protest one is really, I think it's bizarre. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, and look, that's, again, one of the reasons we sent you down there is because I'm seeing the same thing. We're seeing so many different flags. The message is kind of muddy. It just seems like, well, shit, we're Democrats, and this is what we believe in.
Yes.
But it's Palestine, it's Mexico, it's LGBTQ. There is no real message about what they're doing here. LA was a little different, at least in the footage that I've seen, where they just decided to stick with Mexican flags, which is great. However, the women, and they were white women, were the ones that were leading these protests. Exactly what you said. They had the megaphones. So
one of them was a white woman, one of them was a Hispanic woman, but the one that was screaming naturally is the white woman. White women run the world, and they probably did 9/11. White lesbians did 9/11.
Sure. Or Bob Newhart. We've heard a lot about that. I can't confirm it, though. Obviously, we're still working on it. So what time tomorrow will this be out?
It's going to be in the afternoon, but it will absolutely be out tomorrow. I'm going to split from here and go get this done.
Okay, great.
Like now.
Awesome. Awesome. D'Anthony, what do you think in regards to Texas here, the future of it? Is it broken?
Yeah.
No, I don't think it's fixable.
No, probably not.
I love Brian, but
TBD.
I love Brian. There's just not enough of him.
Hey,
and I don't know how to fix this here.
I do want to repeat something real quick though. I did ask people about what they thought of LA and how it was violent and out of control, and I will commend the city of San Antonio and just Texas in general. The people there repeatedly emphasized that they wanted things to stay peaceful, which is, I think, in the current paradigm we're living through, is the more difficult route to take, and I think it's the morally, ethically correct one.
For now,
burning cars and fighting people and throwing bricks at cops there's a time and place for that, but I don't think this is it at all.
For now, though, I'm telling you, you light one car on fire, you have one building on fire. That will set off everything. And Dan and I, when we moved here, was it 2020 that was the riots, Dan?
Yeah.
The BLM, yeah.
Oh yeah, I was down there. I was the one that got the footage of that car that got caught on fire.
And that's it. You burn one car, and then the rest of it goes, and then everybody's ready to rock.
But relatively speaking, Texas does do a much better job of not getting us out of. I mean, look at LA. They have a culture of rioting. It's part of their culture now at this point. You know what I mean?
I just wonder if it's gonna spread and be part of the American culture, and that's what I don't know. Again,
that's the question.
We saw it in, what was it, 2017 with BLM, 2020 with BLM, and then now. And we'll see, because if they start scooping up some of these illegals off the streets in Texas, just wait. It's going to get worse here. It's going to get worse. Appreciate you tuning in, kids. Go to Spotify. We got video up on Spotify now, and we've got more comments on Spotify than we actually do YouTube. Not real sure what's going on with the YouTube page. Wink. We know exactly what's going on there. I think the only thing that'll fix that is a lawsuit at this point. Either way, we did sign a video deal with all of the content from Tetherball Academy Media, so video will be up on Spotify shortly there. They are not going to censor us whatsoever. So we've had that conversation, agreements. Everything you see there will be uncut, same as it always is for Drinkin' Bros. And we're not going to, put duck noises or car horns throughout curse words or any of that fucking bullshit, what everybody else is doing. Will remain true over there. And then after that, go to iTunes and rate the show a 5-star and leave a quick review. Advertisers still give a fuck about that, so please do that. And then, as always, man, we'll be here day in and day out. For D'Anthony Holloway, I'm Ross Patterson. This is the Drinkin' Bros Podcast. Good night, everyone.